Hey guys, so in this video, I want to talk about leaky gut and the 5 ways that you can reverse your leaky gut. And yes, you can reverse your leaky gut. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are easier than others. You might even be doing some of the things, but the 5 things that I'm going to talk about are really, really important steps to reversing your leaky gut, or the more scientific term. And if you're going to your doctor for help for this, you want to use this word, which is intestinal hyperpermeability. Intestinal hyperpermeability. It just means that you've got some tight junctures in your intestine and they've broken down and stuff is leaking through and causing havoc in your immune system. So let me get to what leaky gut is, how to solve it, and actually I'm going to start with why it's really, really important to get it solved, especially if you have an autoimmune condition. Okay, let's start with this. If you don't have an autoimmune condition, but you clicked on this video because you suspect you have leaky gut, you've heard about leaky gut, you don't know what it is, I want to tell you that leaky gut is a little bit of a precursor to autoimmune condition. And most women with an autoimmune condition will struggle with some type of gut dysbiosis. Why is that? Well, 70 to 80% of your immune system resides in your gut. That's our first line of defense. That's where all the action happens for your immune system of whatever you're doing. However, your immune system is keeping you healthy, keeping cancer away, keeping viruses, bacteria, toxins, anything that we come in contact with that we don't want to get sick from, whether it be some forms of cancer or autoimmune condition, some chronic conditions like an autoimmune condition, which is chronic. You got to fix that gut. You got to get rid of that gut dysbiosis. So the first thing I have for you is, and this is not even tip number 1, but this is sort of a diagnostic, is my gut check quiz. So if you click the link below this video, you'll see a link, and just click that and it'll give you a gut check quiz in your email. And that way you will be able to kind of look at the signs of leaky gut, because you might not know some of the signs that are obvious are constant acid reflux, not just occasional, like, oh, I ate, a half a pizza and I got, acid reflux the next day. I'm talking about these things are chronic. So bloating, gas, poor motility, constipation, headaches, even skin rashes, poor sleep. Some of these things can be signs that you have poor gut health or dysbiosis. There's lots of words for it, and there's also a spectrum. So you may have just a little bit of gut dysbiosis. And I'm going to talk about how to figure that out too in my steps, but you may have a little bit of gut dysbiosis, meaning your microbes are not in harmony or in homeostasis, or you might have full-blown leaky gut. Either way, really, really important for your optimal immune function to reverse that. And our gut is super adaptable. And, the younger you are and you're watching this, the easier it's going to be to reverse that leaky gut. But one of the things that I want to tell you is that this intestinal hyperpermeability is not something that you just wake up and you have it. It's years of doing some of the wrong things. And I'm going to talk about some of the wrong things that you may have been doing in this video in my 5 steps to heal leaky gut. But it's an overtime kind of thing that happens. You don't just wake up at 27 years old and that could happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's rare. Mostly if you're watching this, you're probably in your 40s or 50s or 60s and been told that you have leaky gut or you have intestinal hyperpermeability. So let's get down to it. So first of all, why is it important to heal that leaky gut? I mentioned it already. That's where your immune system is housed. 70 to 80% of our immune system is housed in your gut. And so I think that if you're watching this, you know that even if you don't have an autoimmune condition, it's going to be really, really important to heal your gut and make sure that you're in a state of homeostasis, which means you've got the right microbes in there. You don't have candida. So if you've been diagnosed with SIBO, IBS or IBD, sometimes it's called that, leaky gut certainly, or any kind of gut issue, you probably have some type of intestinal hyperpermeability. And what does that mean? Let me just go over that. So your intestine is kind of like a hose, and it needs to remain sort of sealed, right? Because we don't want the bad stuff leaking into your bloodstream. And what your gut is doing when you're digesting your food, it's going through lots of processes. It has to do with the right microbes, not too much candida, not too much yeast, not too much of the bad bugs in there. Everybody has a little bit of candida or yeast or anything, but you want to have the good bacteria and the bad bacteria balanced out. You want to have the right digestive enzymes working for you, and you want to have the right level of stomach acid. So it's more complicated than just like you got the wrong bugs, right? There's lots of things that go into good digestion. So your digestive tract and your poor digestion or your good digestion or your optimal digestion is not unrelated to any of the symptoms that you're having. So if you're having any outward signs, that is your body telling you that something is wrong. It's sort of a flag on the field, that in that football analogy, that yellow flag thrown on the field, that's what it is. It's telling you that something's gone wrong and you need to address it. And so when you have the outward signs, and certainly take my gut check quiz if you're wondering if you have any gut dysbiosis, but it's a sign that your immune system is suffering. And if you have an autoimmune condition, you certainly have some sort of dysbiosis. So what happens is your food doesn't get digested properly because it doesn't have the right bugs, it doesn't have the right enzymes, or you have some inflammation from some food intolerances or something that you're eating. And I'm going to get into that, what you might be eating, for example, that could be causing some inflammation in there. Certainly gas and bloating every time you eat is a sign that you're probably consuming something that is not working for you. It might not be that obvious. But what happens is there's some tight junctures that is kind of like the glue or the cement, I would say, the glue/cement, and that gets broken down. And then you've got trouble because then you've got sort of undigested particles because you've got microscopic breaks in those tight junctures. And then stuff that's not supposed to leak into your bloodstream gets into your bloodstream, and your immune system starts attacking that, and then you're wreaking havoc all over the body. So let's get into my tips now. These are my 5 things that you really must do in order to move the needle on that and reverse that hyperpermeability that we talked about in your intestine. Let me take a moment just to remind you, if you're liking what you're hearing, click the like button for me, because that means it'll get out to more people who might need this help. Also, the subscribe button. I come out with videos every week, and they can be very helpful when it comes to leaky gut, when it comes to intermittent fasting, autoimmune conditions. I talk to you guys all the time about autoimmune conditions. So if you're liking what you're hearing, click the like button and subscribe. The first thing you want to do is fix your nutrition. Now that is a huge category. And actually tip number 2 is going to be a specific food that I'm going to talk about, but let's just talk about general nutrition at first. And there's a bunch of things that you want to look at. So you want to be eating real whole food. How do you do that? Well, I'm going to tell you 2 foods that you really need to cut out for 30, 60, 90 days. And that will sort of trigger, better eating, which is cutting out refined sugar. Doesn't mean forever. I don't mean that you can never have a cookie, cake, Halloween candy, Valentine's Day, C's candy, any of that. Doesn't mean you can never have that again. But if you want to reverse your symptoms, gonna have to cut out sugar, refined sugar in the form of cookies, cakes, candies, all that stuff. Anything that has refined sugar in it, for now, I'm not talking about fruit, for 30, 60, 90 days. See how you feel after 30. The other thing that's going to cause you to do is eat real whole food, because you're also going to be cutting out all the packaged foods in the middle of the market. Anything that is in a bag, a box, or a barcode is highly palatable. It's got seed oils in it, which are inflammatory. It's got 0 nutritional value. You're feeding those bad bugs. If you're eating junk that has 0 nutritional value, you're not feeding the good bugs. So the good bugs in your gut microbiome need to be fed with prebiotic fiber, regular fiber, whatever, insoluble fiber, soluble fiber. All of it is helping your gut microbiome do what it's supposed to do. So that sort of ancestral eating of a real whole food. And if you cut out refined sugar, and if you cut out packaged foods for 30, 60, 90 days, what's left? Right? Real whole food. protein, vegetables, any way you look at it, rices, grains, I'm going to get to that, cutting those things out, which is sort of next level, but real whole food, how our ancestors ate. I'm not going to call it keto or paleo or carnivore diet. I'm just going to call it ancestral eating. So anything that you think your great-great-grandparents would recognize, go for it. I'm not going to say that you need to cut out all legumes or FODMAP or go into any of that. Just eat real whole food. So cutting out those two categories of food, refined sugar and packaged foods for a period of time will allow you to turn to real whole food. Okay, underneath that, but tip number 2 is let's talk about grains for a second. So there is an autoimmune condition that I know everyone has heard of because it's sort of the gold standard of autoimmune condition, which is celiac. Why is it the gold standard? Because it's been well studied and it caused so much pain and, vitamin and mineral deficiency, and it hit hard for a lot of people. And so this is well researched. So I'm not talking about wacky anything. I'm talking about just celiac right now. So what we learned from celiac was that the gluten, the gliadin, the protein, all the different glutens, because there's many of them in our food, in our wheat, causes inflammation in the gut. So tip number 2 is remove all glutens. And this gluten is not one thing. It's a family of proteins that's contained in certainly wheat. You know that. So you need to, even the gluten-free stuff for now, you guys, if you're doing step 1, do not turn to the gluten-free snacks because that's going to cause other problems. So I'm talking about even like any oats, corn, that, rye, barley, that category of anything that has any type of gluten in it. And your best resource for that is to go online and go to like the celiac, society or the gluten-free society or the grain-free society, and they will give you a list of the highly sort of glutenized foods that you need to be careful of. I'm not saying that you're celiac or that you need to be celiac in order to do this, but they have the best resources in terms of being gluten-free, truly gluten-free for 30, 60, 90 days. And why I say gluten-free for that amount of time is because gluten is really insidious and causes, wreaks havoc all over the body in terms of inflammation and joint pain because it's activating your immune system. It's causing lots of inflammation in that gut microbiome, and it will hang around for more than 30 days. The effects of it will hang around for more than 30 days. So you really need to take that out, that particular food out of your diet for a good amount of time. Minimum is 30 days, and you really need to go cold turkey. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. You can't have a bagel every once in a while or a muffin every once in a while to really feel the benefit of going gluten-free. Okay, so tip number 3 is food intolerances, sort of under the same category of nutrition, but you do need to find out if you're allergic to foods, which you probably do because an allergic reaction is going to happen within 3 hours or so, or even immediately. You need an EpiPen for something that you would know because then you'd have a bunch of allergy tests, right? But if you break out in hives immediately, or if you feel your throat closing up immediately, you're allergic to something. And there's a difference between allergic and food intolerances. So I want to separate those out. Allergic foods, you definitely are going to stay away from because you're going to be running to the toilet. Dairy. People have a true dairy allergy, are running to the toilet. Food intolerances are a little bit harder to sort of understand and get tests for, but I encourage you to go to naturopathic doctor, somebody that does food sensitivity testing. And what the food sensitivity testing has done, it's testing if you, I'm not going to get into all the science, the IgG and all that stuff, but if you look it up, it's testing what is creating an immune response. So it could be avocado, it could be broccoli, it could be kale. There's lots of things that could be causing some inflammation and dysbiosis in the gut that are not traditionally unhealthy foods. It's just they're not healthy for you right now. And so you want to find out what foods could be creating some inflammation. When you're talking about nutrition and food intolerances and food allergies, because those food intolerances, what they're doing is creating inflammation in the gut, which is contributing to that breakdown of those tight junctures. And that could be causing you to have that leaky gut situation or the hyperpermeability. Okay, so 4th thing to work on is your medications. Now, This is the time of the video that I always say to everybody, I am not a doctor. I do not tell anybody to be on medications or off medications. I don't get into anybody's medications. I am only here to offer you information for conversational purposes only. And this in particular is one that you can have with your doctor, which is what I did. When I went off of my medications for my psoriatic arthritis, I worked closely with my doctor and got all my blood work done and my, C-reactive protein and testing all that kind of stuff to see that I could safely go off my medication. So I'm not even talking about right now your medications that have to do with your autoimmune condition. I'm talking about other medications, statins, blood pressure medication, anything that you're on for a chronic illness, metformin that has side effects like vitamin deficiencies or causing gut inflammation. Like we know, and your doctor will tell you this, that you don't want to be on non-steroidal anti-inflammatories in the form of, Advil, Motrin for long periods of time. Those medications are not meant to be taken for, weeks and months. You got to find out why you're taking that, why you have pain. So that's a side thing. But medications for chronic illnesses, and if you're on one, you know that you're on one for cholesterol or high blood pressure, those have serious consequences when it comes to your gut dysbiosis. Now, you may have to be on those because, your doctor says you must be on this, but it's worth exploring what are the side effects. Like, let's say your blood pressure medication has a side effect of depleting vitamin D, for example. Then you want to know that, and you want to get your vitamins and mineral levels tested by someone who's competent and the right testing so that you know that you need to supplement with that, either with food or with supplements. If your medications are, because the depletion of vitamins and minerals can also be contributing to leaky gut. It can be contributing to fatigue. If you're not absorbing your vitamins and minerals necessary to, for example, give you energy, build ATP, keep your mitochondria fully functioning. If you're, taking medications that are inhibiting vitamin and mineral absorption, you're going to be tired, you're going to have gut dysbiosis, and those are going to cause some health consequences. So what I say about this is informed consent. Talk to your doctor and find out what vitamins and minerals could be not absorbing properly on these other medications that you're on. Okay, my last tip number 5 is intermittent fasting. So what I want to say about intermittent fasting is I'm not talking about 24-hour fast. I'm not talking about Prolon. I'm not talking about, water fast for 5 days or the master cleanse. I'm talking about a daily rest for your digestive system. So when you fast for 14, 15, 16 hours daily at a minimum, and that's easy for people to do. Just eat your breakfast a little bit later, break for dinner a little bit earlier and squeeze in that time so you're eating in an 8-hour window, a 9-hour window, a 10-hour window even would make a difference. So right now you're going to do a little math in your head and you're going to say, how am I eating? Am I eating 12 hours a day? A lot of people, believe it or not, and intermittent fasting has, some parameters about what breaks your fast. And I have other videos about that, which I can actually post here. So you can just click on that about what breaks your fast. So if you're participating in a little bit of intermittent fasting, but you want to kind of drill down on if you're doing it correctly, because I'll give you a little pro tip here. If you're drinking coffee at 6 a.m. with milk and sugar, that's a milkshake and that breaks your fast. If you're having a protein and you've been told that doesn't, there's lots of things that break your fast. And so what I encourage people to do is be super strict about what breaks your fast if you think you're already participating in intermittent fasting. And what it does is on a daily basis, it gives your digestive system time to rest. It gives it that 16 hours to instigate the migrating motor complex. Your digestive enzymes get going. Your microbes can kind of do what they need to do in order to digest your food properly and clear out the toxins, the bugs, the viruses that don't belong there, the extra estrogen that you might be hanging on to, ladies. So I always suggest intermittent fasting. Start slow. I've got lots of videos on intermittent fasting. That intermittent fasting, the studies that have been done, great for weight loss, great for bringing down inflammation. And if you've got leaky gut, you've got inflammation. Okay, so those are my 5 tips. You don't, by the way, have to do all of those things. If that was super overwhelming for you, and the reason I mentioned 5 is because some people are already participating in intermittent fasting. Some people eat no packaged foods. So kind of go over that list and pick and choose. It's a process, you guys. Pick and choose what is the easiest thing for you to do. Gluten in and of itself, is a hard thing to sort of navigate and give up, because you need to really go off all the things I talked about, not just bread and bagels. So, go over the list, see what you can tackle first. I'm always a big fan of, breaking it down into small tasks. Do one thing. Get rid of, doesn't matter what it is. Start intermittent fasting. That will be very helpful. Once you've mastered that, move on to the next thing. You don't have to do all of these things at once. Those are my best tips on how to reverse leaky gut, or as the medical community calls it, intestinal hyperpermeability. Okay, guys, hope this was helpful. And again, if you are liking what you're hearing, click the like button, subscribe. I come out with videos every week, and certainly click the link down below to get my gut check quiz. It might be very helpful for you.